Episode 1, Part 2, A Path Illuminates from the Darkness. These pictures show my earlier progress and attempts at making a house in Blender. My first attempt is dated February 20th, 2018. Open my simple house file, then zoom in. This image shows gaps due to a misaligned roof. I also played around with rotation, causing the far wall's corner to be tilted upward. Lastly, take a look at this example of a shadow. You can change a shadow's direction by moving one or multiple light sources. Exit out of this image and notice my second attempt, dated February 28th. Open the brick house image and zoom in. I use simple geometry to add a roof with no gaps. This triangle-shaped region is called a gable in the real world. I flattened a cone, creating a triangular wall that slid right into place, then duplicated and sent another one to the back. I expected that flattening a cone would have resulted in a 2D bell shape. To my surprise, Blender created a triangle. Whatever works, I suppose. I then used nodes to create a marble red material for the roof and mixed a checkered pattern with the brick pattern to apply this texture you see right down here, set to the cube. Take a look at the difference between the pattern of the four walls and the floor here. This is a basic example of how Blender applies texture wrapping automatically. The left and right walls, including the floor, appear to have their pattern in the same orientation, whereas the front and back walls follow a simpler pattern, which is different. Alright, Alt plus Tab, back to the Blender Progress folder. Then explore the mystical Blender folder where Blender lives. I'll open the one on my T5 external hard drive, proving that this software can be run as a portable application. Let's look at the enhancements I made to the brick house. I changed the node values for the roof and mixed the blue checkered tiles pattern with the cloud texture. Ideally, this pattern could be used for floor tiles instead. Next, click the three-dot menu on the right and click File Info. File Info proves that this image was saved only 23 minutes after the brick house file. That's the first time I used the node's GUI to alter an object's appearance by making selections from a list and mixing those to produce complicated results. Use nodes to alter object properties in seconds, not hours. Blender's default 3D view editor is set to 1080p, but this image file outputs at 960 by 540. Why? If you guessed B, that this image is optimized by only including the objects while discarding the rest of the scene, then you are right. Zoom in now. Take a closer look at the cloud texture. It's white by default, so while the texture is clearly visible on the blue tile, it's invisible on the white tile. Roofing tiles were added by cutting a flattened cylinder diagonally and rotating that 35 degrees. Then I created an array that spread the tiles horizontally and then duplicated that one on top of the other. The carpet was made using a cloud texture we saw earlier, but this time it was alone with red and gray applied. The fence is a combination of an elongated rectangle with a connecting horizontal crossbeam and a flattened cylinder with a cone on top. The objects were joined together manually before I found out about the snap feature, which is fittingly activated by pressing the magnet button. I also found the merge command, but that is harder to use for our purposes. Regardless of the method used, the goal here is to decrease the gap between two objects. A perfect union is achieved when there are no gaps and no overlaps between objects, resulting in a wobbling film that forms at the point of contact. This wobbling effect, as shown here, is proof of perfect union. I added a glass ball, then set gravity and wind effects to that ball. The morphing of the grass around the ball proves that these effects work too. I figured out how to apply randomized color pattern with the range set from yellow to dark green. Take a closer look at how the ball affects the grass position. Now direct your attention to the blue sky, which can be achieved by setting the default light object to sun. Want to add 3D After Effects to an image? That's easy. Just click Edit and Create, then hit Add 3D Effects. Here's an example. I'll choose Autumn Leaves and Balloons, then hit Play. Well, there's a bonus. The wind sounds are included. You can save a copy or just hit exit out here. Move on to the next image now. This image, which is a prequel to the last one I showed you, was saved March 7th. Now zoom in. The lighting is actually better in this image because after setting the blue sky, shadows are enhanced. But lighting must be further adjusted manually by moving the lights around. You can clearly see the individual parts I used to create this fence now. I laid out the grass using strips of plain objects with hair particles enabled. In the back is my first attempt at making a grass leaf. Hair is by far more natural as grass, so I consider that cylinder in the ground to just be better suited as a lamppost. The future is bright. Check out the objects I was able to build in Blender so far. I will teach you exactly how to make these perfect shapes in future videos. Well, there you have it. A look at the theory behind building objects and filling a scene in Blender. From now on, we'll only be looking at how to build practically and efficiently. Stay tuned. Let's get back to Blender now. By pressing front slash, you can toggle between front perspective and front perspective local. Local zooms and centers in where the cursor is and where objects are added to Blender by default. There's an issue. If you press front slash and then front slash again, the floor disappears. The fix is to pan up so that the floor gets recorded into memory. The memory counter is on top, currently listed as 11.28 megabytes. Let me pan up twice and then tap front slash twice. Now you see it, now you don't. Sahil Singh as the actor. And director. Initiate launch sequence. Coordinate set to the other side of the Milky Way. Open portal. And we have liftoff. To be continued in episode 2 of Perfect Heart.